Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Pits of Metal Motorcast. This is your host, Dave. I got along me Nitro Funny Car driver Rick Kraft. How you doing, Rick?
I'm great, buddy. How are you?
I'm good. So, Rick, first question: what got you involved in drag racing?
Oh boy, that goes back to the Wayback Machine. I'll blame it on two things. Sitting on the front porch of my house when I was a little kid, listening to the funny cars miles away at US 30 drag strip because I could hear them from my old house. And my older brother Tom, he had a 61 Zet with a big block in it, and he would take me out for some spins once in a while. Boy, I'll tell you what, that got the itch going real hard. That was probably the reason.
So, what year did you start drag racing?
I started in 78.
So, what was your first car?
I bought the Gold Coast Duster from Don Neves. Pete Miner was the driver. They're a Miami-based car, and I was looking for something to start out with. And, you know, back in those days, you didn't always start out in, you know, like a super stock or a comp car, which is probably the wise thing to do. We sometimes jumped right into what we loved and believed we should be doing. So I was looking around for cars, and I was at the track one day at US 30, in fact, asking everybody, and everybody was kind of shrugging me off. But I happened across Don Neves, who was there with the Coca-Cola Cavalcade, and started talking, and in about 20 minutes, we struck a deal. And from that point on, I went to a couple races with them after we decided price and when we could exchange the car for money and such over the winter. And it was a fantastic scenario for me. So I bought the car, and we met in Atlanta, Georgia, and drove that thing home. And I converted it actually to an altered. That was what happened. I sold the Duster body, and in fact, the Horvath family out of Indiana reconstructed the Duster and the Gold Coast Charger, which followed the Duster on Neves Trail.
So, what other cars have you driven after that?
A couple of them. I ended up, I bought a top alcohol funny car after that. I raced AA altered with the Gold Coast chassis, and that was the year Pro Comp eliminated altered in NHRA. So I bought a car from a guy named Gordon Riley. It was a Halcano chassis, beautiful car, and I attempted that on fuel for a couple of races, and I didn't get very far with that. And so I made that back into what was an alcohol car, and raced UDRA and NHRA, and even a couple of AHRA races with that. It was pretty notorious. I had a big, gigantic injector head on it that I kind of home built with some help from Lee Austin, a jet car welder and fabricator, and a fellow who was a machinist. We put the thing together and made a tall block out of a KV engine, and it was a pretty cool looking Plymouth Arrow, one of those lay-down cars that you don't see too many of these days. It was a real handful, but that was what I had, and so I ran it. And I wrecked the darn thing. I had a chute failure and pretty much busted it up to where I couldn't race it anymore. And at the time, I was sponsored by the J.C. Chips company out of Chicago, and they liked whatever was going on with us, and so they continued our sponsorship for a total of 4 seasons. So it was the Aero car, and then I had a couple of Daytonas that were some of Mert McKinney's first projects out there. And then I kind of went back into fuel racing. I've driven for a good friend of mine, Tom Moultrie, a bunch in the early 90s, and a fellow named Hippo Bracker He was a fuel-ordered racer out of Pomona. I drove for him out west part of the season, and I don't know where you want to stop or where you want to start, but there's a lot in between all that. But
No,
the Jungle Gym car, the Brand X car out of Texas, Mike Fazer, a real good friend of mine. I drove for him for an IHRA and some match races for about 5 years, all kinds of stuff.
So what car did you drive for Tom Moultrie? Not the Jurassic Classic, was it?
Yeah. Actually, Tommy and I had worked together with Larry Walenek back in the late 70s. They had bought Chi-Town Hustler a Mustang 2 from Austin Coil for Conus Coal Minute, and I was the bottom end guy in that car. And, when the team disbanded, a lot of things took place, but then Tommy got the itch again, and he bought a car in the real early 90s, I should say, and we converted that into his original resurrection of the Jurassic Plastic, only with the 37 Chevy body on it, the fuel water. And that was a fun car to drive, man. That car hauled the bacon. We ran as quick as a 560s a couple times over 250 with it. And I drove for him for a number of years. And that was real good. We had a good run with that thing. And he wanted to drive again, so he got back in the cockpit and he did what he did. And I ended up kind of moving on to other cars from there.
Yeah, Tom's had a lot of great drivers in the seat of the Jurassic Classic.
Oh, yeah. He has. He's a real good guy, and he works real hard at what he does. And he wants to put on a good show. And and still go fast. And it's hard to do all that on a limited budget, but somehow he manages to do it, so pretty proud of him.
Yeah, everybody loves those big header flames.
Yeah, there's a little technique to that, but you've got to figure out.
Just like John Lawson and Joe Haas have the big header flames thanks to him.
Yeah, another couple of real good guys. I know both them, of course, and they got a real good deal going. The Nitro Flank Car gig and NHRA is kind of moved off into a whole different atmosphere. You have to work day and night, and you would anyway, but the amount of money it takes to do that is highly specialized that it's really only good for a chosen few, unfortunately. So what seems to be happening, and then I'll change the subject here in a minute, because the nitro nostalgia stuff or bringing fuel cars back, they still go well, they still run good, and don't have to have $1 million budgets. That's really kind of a trend. It has been for some years. Back in 2005, my old partner, my hot rod partner, his name is Dave Hill. For me, he's a great friend of mine, him and his son Ryan and Norma. We held some couple of events called Match Race Madness at the time, and rented 41 and ultimately a couple other tracks after that. Seeing that the sport might need some fuel cars back, and it was cool. We had top fuel front engine, top fuelers, and fuel welders, and nitro funny cars all kind of racing each other. And we were blessed with it because Lucas Oil backed a television package and put us on ESPN for, that thing ran for like 3 years. It's unbelievable. And it was real fun, but that's where the sport was going, and we were kind of looking at the crystal ball of the whole thing, and we're glad to see that's come to fruition. And guys like Lawson and Moultrie, and now even more guys are building cars like that with, you got John Force, so to speak, Schumacher-type engines, but they're way back down to where they can really run well and, generally speaking, not hurt too many parts and stay within people's budget.
Right.
So I hope that continues. That'll be great.
Now you mentioned Ryan Hill. He's got that beautiful Pro Mod.
Yeah, they got, man, those guys, they work day and night on that thing. And I go to the shop now and again and we'll just, kind of swap ideas. And they're putting a real good combination together for this season. I'm anxious to see him go out. I hope to tag along with him sometimes.
Yeah, Ryan was boasting about you in his interview.
I missed that one, but I boast about him all the time too. So now we're even.
Yeah.
But he really is. He's a real good driver. I've been to the track, and for a youngster, well, you know what? Junior drag racing helps youngsters get a feel for racing. If you start out in that, it gives you an edge over people who don't. The timing of it, and the effort, and the focus, and the concentration, all that makes a difference.
Yeah.
But even with that, you still got to have what it takes to do better than most. And I don't know if you've ever been to their house, but my gosh, I've never seen so many trophies in my life from their kids in junior drag racing. And Dave tuned those things. They did a great job.
Him and his brother, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Josh.
Yep. So now how?
They've moved on.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Now he's hoping to be a big Pro Mod guy one day.
I think you will. It's all funny. The Pro Mod racers, as you very well know, your audience I'm sure as well, the amount of money that's spent on those cars it really touches what fuel racing, NHRA fuel racing is. $1 million budget, run an eighth of a mile, absolutely flying. Technology has taken charge of just about every facet of drag racing. And if you follow that path, you better have deep pockets.
Or good sponsorship.
That's what I mean. Deep pockets is what gets you sponsorship, or perseverance and just not giving up. You just cannot give up. You just can't give up. You just got to keep going and go as far as you can until there's nothing left. And hopefully somebody will call you. Does that happen?
Yeah. So now, did you race that US 30 before they closed down?
Yeah, I was there the last weekend they were open.
And what?
I raced. I had an '84 Dodge Daytona that Murph built, and he built it actually the winter of '83, '84, and we were out there. The AHRA. It was the Grand American Nationals, if I'm not mistaken, and that was like a fabulous weekend for us because we were on our game, and it was really funny because we set the record, the AHRA ET record, on a particular run, and it hadn't been broken for years. This is funny. And, the crew pulls up, and we're high-fiving and cheering. It's like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe it. This is going so cool. And the next pair of cars down the track, one of them was Vern Most. He broke my record. It's like, shit. He had the record for like 3.5 minutes. So at least we did it, and that was cool.
Yeah.
But no, they shut the track down because of breaking noise ordinance, which was avoidable, but it's water under the bridge.
Sunday.
Oh, yeah. I mean, gee whiz. Those radio ads, Dave, them radio ads were you just had to go.
Oh, yeah.
You had to go to the track because it was so exciting. And you know what? It could only be 2 cars they're talking about, but you had to go see them because it was so exciting.
Smoking US 30 drag strip where the great ones run.
Oh, yeah. Jan Gabriel.
Oh, yeah.
Great man.
Yeah, I used to hear that commercial all the time, like WLS. Yeah. You remember?
Now, he did a lot for sports, sitting in a studio, and God bless him. He passed away some years ago because of illness, and it was a huge blow to the sport. People don't realize, but we were blessed that when Dave Hill and I were putting the match race events on, we had Jan doing our radio ads, throughout some Chicagoland stations, and it was great. It was a great experience sitting next to him, and I had to write out everything I needed to say because he didn't know the cars or the sponsors, and I thought it looked great, on paper, and boy, you should have seen the red ink in that thing, because the way it comes out on a radio ad is so much more abbreviated. You can't keep talking and talking. So what I had was what I thought was about a 28-second commercial, would have probably been over a minute. So we chopped and channeled it, and it ended up being awesome. It was. I actually play. I play the recordings of it now and again just to get them chills back up my spine. It was fun listening to them old ads.
Now, did you do a lot of racing at Great Lakes Dragway?
Did what? I'm sorry.
Did you do a lot of racing at Great Lakes?
Yeah, I did. Who didn't? Everybody who was anybody, especially in the Midwest, UDRA including, we ran there a lot. When Broadway was there, and I kind of, UDRA disbanded, and NHRA rules, and a lot of things changed where I wasn't up there as often as I'd like to have been. Because Randy and Marcel, those guys, and Ray Drew back then as well.
Right.
And down at Glasgow, we go up there when we could. I loved the Great Lakes Dragway. It was a place we'd go there and test a lot, and you could run well there more often than not.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see the Invader funny car go over there.
Yeah, I'm driving for Glenn Solano.
Now, how did that come about?
Well, I was sitting in the airport, and I was headed to West Palm Beach to drive for Henry Gutierrez. He had the Brand X and the Jungle Gym car, and I was going to be in the Brand X car. And I was flying down there for the IHRA race, and John Hale, who is many people know as an NHRA funny car racer, fantastic person. He texts me. He says, "Hey Rick, check this out," and he texts me what he was saying was that Glenn was looking for a driver, but out his way, somewhere in Arkansas. And I go, well, what do you got to lose? So this is interesting, I guess, because back in my beginnings, I'll backtrack just a minute, but back in my beginnings, when I was just a kid, in my Altered, I was telling you about the old Gold Coast Duster car.
Mm-hmm.
I was borrowing, or I was being given half of a race shop in Dayton, Indiana. A guy named Denny Russell, still a great friend of mine, was driving the Kugel Freedom Machine for Larry Kugel, and Larry Kugel stopped racing, so Denny had his shop open, and I needed help with my Alder. So he said, "Come on down, I'll help you out. I'll teach you what you need to know." And that was fantastic. Well, a few weeks later, Denny got a call from a guy named Mike Van Sant, who was on the Coca-Cola Cavalcade Stars circuit. And so who rolls in to the bay next to me but the Invader Mustang? So I got to know Mike Van Sant in the original Invader car way back then, and we've remained friends ever since. So here I'm in the airport going to drive the Brand X, and I go, geez, I'm just going to call Mike and see what's going on with Glenn, who owns the new Invader car. And so it started with John Hale, then it went to Mike Van Sant, who called Glenn Solano, who called me, and the next thing you know, I'm driving that car too. So it was kind of a full circle, but it took 30 years to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, but like I said, it would be great to see you come out to Great Lakes with that car one of these days.
Yeah, I tell you what, the band on it really is. Honestly, they've had gremlins, and we're working those out. I was in Tulsa with the car in 2015, and it kicked a rod out. I was racing against Ronnie Young in the Blue Max, and at the same time it stuck a valve. Supercharger let go, and it blew the body clean off the car and into a bunch of pieces. So that didn't seem so good, but it really was nothing. I wasn't really hurt. The fire suit got burned up a little bit, but I was just fine. I really was ready to get back in it if we can do something with it, but the body was in probably 50 pieces. But them guys down in Arkansas took all the pieces they gathered up, and the fans brought it to our pit, and they drove that thing back to their shop and spent the whole winter and part of the next year, 2016, putting that back together. It was unbelievable. Or 2017, I'm sorry, I'm a year off. And they did it. And so it was a beautiful red, white, and blue paint job, and now it's primered black. And the car runs good. But Glenn is one of those, he is like shooting from the hip, old-time racer. No computer, literally nothing on that car to tell him anything. Just an oil pressure gauge. So we have a way of doing things. Like we make our run, and I get out of the car, and the first thing I do is head for him because he wants to know what I think or what I felt. And we connect real well. We make changes, and the changes usually make a better difference. So this year, 2018, we're hoping to get on some good tracks and at least, get into the 580s, 570s with it. But it's got potential to go even faster than that. But it might take a little more budget for him to do that. So hopefully we can make some decent runs and he can feel good about all the work he's done.
Yeah. So when you first started drag racing, what drivers were inspirational to you?
Brome, Ace Manzo. Ace and Ken Vady are why I wanted to go Altered racing, because I knew there were a wild bunch of cars, and I just wanted to see if I can drive one. Leroy Goldstein, ironically, now I'm in the Ram Chargers car. And, Fred Manolini. I quit racing and, went the family route back in the late 1980s. And just before I did that, I took my car out a couple more times, and I went to St. Louis with it. I had no sponsor, borrowed trailer, my truck was a clunker, but my car ran pretty good. And we were in St. Louis with it for a UDRA race, and we just kind of showed up. There were a bunch of cars that run the whole season. This was like the last gig of the year. And I was at odds as to whether I even wanted to do this anymore. But we ended up in the finals against Fred. And I red lit. I had a 398 light, and he would have beat me anyway. Fred always just nipped me by a nose. But he said just a quick little statement. He goes, Rick, you ought to do this. You ought to stick with this. And then he turned around and walked away. He said, these guys have been racing all year long, and you show up and you're in the finals. And this isn't a Rudy toot here, but I'm just telling you that sometimes short little words of inspiration from one person to another can change a person's life, and that did for me. It made me really think about where I was going in a lot of different ways, and so I stuck with it. And here we are talking.
So
how's that sound?
Sounds great. So now with the Ram Chargers car, when are you looking to have that car ready by?
3 years ago. Well, it's not like anybody's pointing fingers because it's nobody's fault or nothing. Back to Dave Hill, Dave and his boy Ryan would show up once in a while, but he was still pretty young then. We built the car. I bought all the tubing, and another great friend of mine, Bill Holland, we literally built the car, the chassis, and mounted a body, and took 16 months. And we raced IHRA with it, but I put all the components in for fuel racing, because that's where we wanted to go. Well, I ended up having to sell the car, divorce stuff and all that, to the guy who has it now. And, I built it for fuel, but I ran IHRA alcohol with it. And it wasn't less than a year later, IHRA stopped alcohol racing. So now he's got this car and didn't know what to do with it. So he calls me up and says, "What do you think?" And I go, "Well, here's where I think the sport's going. Nostalgia, nitro racing, and there's more cars probably being built like that than most others." And so he endeavored to go in that direction. Little did I know, he had in his mind from our conversations that you probably have to have money or a name, and you're great if you got both. So he started looking for a trademark name, some recognizable name, and one day he called me up, says, "You're not going to believe this, but I just bought the trademark Ram Chargers name." I'm like, "Get out of here." He goes, "No. It'd been some months. He'd been working on it, but doggone John Hooter did it." And from there, we got to know Chris Carlin. Chris, great gal, lives in California now. Her late husband is Leroy Goldstein. So she and I have been talking and, kind of behind the scenes about how the car's going and how representative of Leroy's efforts from the 70s, the first car to, break 6 seconds in 1971, late 70s.
Right.
So it's just an odd thing how all things kind of come together for you. Good Lord takes care of those, take care of him. But that car is probably about 90% done. It should be running here. If we worked on it every day, we'd probably have it race ready in 2 weeks. But with the way things are going, poor Don doesn't always feel so good. He's got some things going on. It'll probably take a couple more months, and we'll roll it onto his driveway and fire it up, and just see what happens. The combination of the engines changed a little bit. We built it for the NHRA Heritage rules and what was also the IHRA rules. And because of the time of things taken as it is, IHRA courses isn't racing that anymore. NHRA, that's changed. So we're putting a little bigger pump on it, speed blower up a little bit, putting a 44 amp mag on it. Hope everybody's hearing this. And don't think we're going to challenge Johnny Lawson and them guys, because it's still got a 671 on it. But it should still run, somewhere in the high fives. Power-wise, good luck with that. This doesn't even have skirts on the running board. Down, how most cars have them from the bottom edge of the body to the ground. This doesn't even have that. I mean, there's like zero aerodynamics. It looks like the original Ram Chargers, but it's 5 inches longer, and that's it. So it's going to be a wheel horse, trying to get it to the finish line. But I'm putting a manual shifter in because I used to drive like that, and Paul Smith's been real cool and helping us with the basic combination. Because what he would call me up when he was renting his NHRA car to Blake Alexander, and his whole crew would go do that, and then I would come in and I would oversee the Henry Gutierrez's Jungle Gym and the Brand X operation. And I drive one car and I bring another guy in to drive the other one, so we'd have some fun together. But Paul's been, coaching us on how those cars ran, and so we kind of have that set up starting out. We're going to tweak it a little bit because, the pump and blower speed and the mag change, but it should still run pretty good.
Now, let me
put it this way.
Go ahead.
It ought to run fantastic.
Now, when that car is ready, are you going to drive it or he's going to drive it?
No, I'll be driving it.
Yeah.
I'll be driving it.
Very good. Now, with the Invader car, what kind of body is on that car?
It's a Corvette. A 70 Corvette.
And what kind of engine?
It's got a 500-inch. It had a KB engine in it, but it's got a Brad Anderson block now, 500-inch. It's got two Enderley fuel pumps, about 38 gallons. It's got a 1471, 28 over, 40 amp mag, 44 amp mag. So it's an outlaw car. It still has an air button shift. You shift it once, about half track, but it's not like the NHRA rolls with a 671 and, the blower overdrive being what it is, and the fuel pump has to be just so you just run it the way you bring it. And we're going to Mocan Tragway.
Funny car
near
chaos.
Joplin, Missouri, last weekend of this month with the car.
Funny car chaos.
Funny car chaos. Chris Graves. Thank God for Chris Graves.
Run what you bring.
Yeah, and that's really a good concept, and because a lot of guys who want to do that are afraid of it, because the IHRA and the NHRA rules are very delegated, and this is it. You can't sway off of that. And there's a lot of people who aren't quite used to, 18.9 gallons and the blower. It's a lot better to let people take parts they might have from other cars, put it together, stuff they know, and kind of tune around what their experience level is, and start out kind of easy and just work at it. And that way, it doesn't usually cost as much money, except for mechanical failure, but anybody can have that. But if you can just run stuff you're used to, put fuel in it, and there's everybody around you who wants to help you, to some degree, and grow into it, and then start, trimming it where you have to. And that's why it's becoming so popular. You're given some liberties. So Chris is doing a good thing, and we were kind of involved with that. When I was with Mike Fazer and Bob and Kathy Flock with their Bullet Bob car, because we were working with IHRA some years ago, because they needed to do something. They got rid of Nitro Funny Car, and so I talked to Aaron, who was the IHRA president then, and said, man, why don't you put a couple of fuel altereds out there? People dig them, and we usually don't hurt too much, and we can put 3 runs on in a weekend or a day. And after quite a few months went by, we did. We went to Martin, Michigan. I was driving Mike's fuel altered and John Dunn was in both of Bob's fuel altered. And honestly, for the life of me, I don't know why, but both of our cars didn't run that good. We just, gee whiz, just whatever. But the band flipped out. It was like, wow, that's cool. So John Dunn took the reins of that whole thing. I think Paul Romine started trying to really organize something. And then John Dunn grabbed a hold of it with Aaron Colborn and IHRA, and that's when the nitro stuff happened. And he got 6 and 8 cars together. Us was one of them. And we went to about a half dozen races. And they, you kind of dot the countryside east of the Mississippi. And it was fun, because it was just like what Chris is doing now. Right. Some guys had the NHRA sort of combination. Other guys were not. But, we all kind of ran within about 2/10 of each other. And we put on good shows. And they put it on TV. It was a really good thing.
Right.
So, and it's still, and people are still doing that. So, if people weren't digging it, like fans or sponsors or tracks, then we wouldn't be building these things still. But not only are we still building, we're building more of them. So that gives you a trend. And we're glad to be part of that.
Now, Rick, with the Invader car, what's been your fastest run time?
Oh, geez. I mean, honestly, in 3 years, I've made 6 runs in that thing. 7 runs. One time it tossed the belt. Another time it blew the tires off it. The car's got 560 potential. I'll tell you that right now. And this year might do it. It's gone that fast before. But we just got to keep Glenn in the trailer and the guys working on the car, if you know what I'm saying.
So how many?
It'll do it.
How many crew members do you have for that car?
Well, if you include women and children and the 3 dogs, there's about 47 crew members.
Well, who are the main crew members that work on the engine?
Well, there's 5 crew members that basically work on the car. That's really it. And then myself, I throw in my 2 cents after we talk about stuff.
Right. So now, are there any sponsors for the Invader car?
Not really. He, has friends, he calls sponsors who help with machining and gathering things up for him. And, you might not think of it like this, but a crew person is basically a sponsor. If they're volunteering their time and using that guy's truck and using this guy's trailer and those people loading the cooler up, they're sponsoring that car. So their crew is a sponsorship. And it's a real good one.
Now, with Funny Car Cast, you're going to be doing an 1/8 mile. Do you prefer 1/8 mile or quarter-mile racing?
I like quarter-mile. It really doesn't matter. 1/8 mile, some guys tune their cars different, and you can, But to me, if you're running as hard as you can on quarter-mile, and you go to an 1/8 mile track the same, I don't know how much harder you can run it. Right. The only difference is the shutdown. You got to be a little more observant of the shutdown, and you usually do a little over 200 at 1/8 mile anyway. If the shutdown's kind of short, certainly got to make pull the chutes early, because they're not going 240 or 50, and they won't pop out as soon. So you got to give them a little more time to blast them, and so you don't wear out the end of the track. But I like quarter-mile, because that really tests what the car is built for.
Right. So let me ask you a few fun questions here, Rick. Do you have any hobbies outside from drag racing?
Do what? I'm sorry?
Do you have any hobbies outside of drag racing?
near a state park and a beach in Indiana. So I like to go hiking, but I can't do that so much like I used to. I got banged up a few years ago. In fact, I'm kind of limping around now, but I love to go hiking. And I like to go lollygag bike riding. I just, the park is real nice. It kind of gets you away from everything. Hear nature and things like that, jumping around the trees.
Right. So what's Rick Kraft's favorite food?
Oh, it's two things: chips and salsa, and pizza.
How about beverage?
Yep. Mellow Yellow and Miller High Life Light.
Favorite music?
I listen to a lot of stuff. Classic rock is on a lot, almost too much for me, but I still listen to it. I like everything from Moby to the Beach Boys, Lady Antebellum. My sweetheart Pam, she and I listen to country all the time. We surf all the time. We listen to all kinds of stuff. But that's kind of it.
Fondest memory of your drag racing career?
Well, I loved when Tom Mocher and I were racing back in our beginnings, and our car was flying. And probably most notably is when I was driving for Phaser. Mike Phaser is a real good buddy of mine, and I drove his Altered for years. And then he put a Corvette on it, and we raced the IHRA Nitro Jam. And we had problems after problems. My gosh, blowing up engines. I mean, it was unbelievable. It's run out of oil. We all kind of knew that, but anyway, he fixed it, and boom, we won 3 IHRA races, all in 2.5 races. It was really cool. And that was probably it, because we worked so hard, those guys in particular. I really didn't spend too much time at the shop, because their shop was in Illinois. But that was definitely a highlight. Wasn't, national championship. We just won some races. And didn't hurt anything. It was good.
Now, if listeners want to see where you're going to be running with the Invader car, what's the best way for them to find out where you're going to be running that car at?
I'll probably post all that. I'll post that once Glenn makes the decisions. I'll post it on. I'll talk to you, and I'm not a big. I don't do a lot of social media. If something interesting, I'll put it up there, but when it comes to the racing, and seems a lot of people, would like to know, so I'll put that up there, and hopefully we see somebody,
Yeah.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Well, Rick, I want to thank you very much for your time. You have any final words for everyone listening in?
Hang in there, folks. There's a lot of jabber going on. A lot of people say NHRA, blah, blah, it's nothing like it used to be. The TV sucks. What are you talking about? Man, I remember when I was a kid watching Wild World Sports. Drag racing came on twice a year for 3 minutes. Now, if I compare it to where it came from, I'm saying it's fantastic today. I mean, it really is. It might not be perfect, but it's keeping the sport out there. And the other part of that is every other sport has grown and progressed too. NASCAR, you don't see a 69 Dodge Charger with a 426 going around Darlington. Hell no. So, give us a feather in the cap that we're still out there strong, and we're branching out a little bit to keep it going at the grassroots too.